Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Let's have a little bit of fun. I'm going to ask you some questions. Please stand up if they're true for you. So please stand up if at some point in your life you made a best friend at work. All right. That's right. Shout out to Vern, by the way. Please have a seat. Thank you. Vern was my teacher of entrepreneurship, 1989, University of Maryland, and to follow in his footsteps is an honor. Thank you. Please stand up if you dated somebody with whom you worked. That's a lot of people. Look around. Thank you. Please have a seat. Please stand up if you married somebody that you met at work. Wow. Still married to that person. Beautiful. Please stand up if you divorced somebody that you worked with. All right. Now, why does he get the most applause? That's what I'd like to know. Vulnerability, perfect. Courage, love it. Moving on. Just a little backstory. So working at the Entrepreneurs Organization from 1990 to 1997, I fell in love with this peer group concept we called Forum, and while I was there, decided to make it really my passion, and started hundreds of them around the world. In 97, I decided I'm going to make this my work. I quit my job, took my favorite part of my job, made it my business, and along the way, some things started to happen that really initially felt great. So one was, people would say, I've just shared something with this group of strangers that I have not shared with any of my best friends or family. Another thing I would hear is, you guys are now my best friends. And when I first heard all that, I was really proud. And then I started to realize the reason you join these groups is so you could learn and be better at work, be better at home, have better relationships elsewhere, not just to have the group take place of your life. And so I dug in and I asked myself, what's the DNA that makes these groups so powerful? What makes them so sticky? What makes people share stuff they wouldn't share anywhere else? And I said, how can we apply this in the real world, in the workplace, with our families, with our friends? And that's how we got to the 7 keys that we are going to talk about. First, I want to just share one statistic, and for those of you that stood up, according to Gallup, if just 4 out of 10 people in your company have a friend at work, profitability is up 14%. So all I want to say to you is this: in this conscious capitalism room, friendship equals profits. Do I sound like a pig in saying that? Hope not. So with that, key number 1, shared purpose and values. Is there anybody in the room whose company does not have shared purpose and values? Dare you raise your hand? The key is everybody aligned on your team on that shared purpose? Are the values clear? And do they define and drive your culture? And is everybody on the bus playing by those rules? Or do you have the wrong people, or do you have the wrong values? So I think that one is one that probably is not a surprise to many of you. You have it in hand, so we're going to move on. Next one is judgment-free. And one of the very keys to these groups and to people sharing so openly is we've designed it so that you cannot judge somebody. And so in the real world, somebody might sigh, they might roll their eye, they might ask you an attacking question. You might ask them for advice, and they may tell you what to do, and it may piss you off. Does that happen to anybody here? Yeah. And so what's tricky is we get asked for advice, and we give advice, and we think it's okay. But instead, what we do in these forums is we share experience. Here's my story. Here's what happened to me. Here's the pain I felt. And here's how I struggled through it. And by hearing a bunch of stories, you're empowered to make your own decision. You're empowered to find your own path versus me telling you what to do. Reliability is the next key, and that shows up in a variety of ways. Do you show up on time? Do you show up when you're supposed to? Confidentiality. I have to trust that everything I share in this space is going to stay here and is not going to go anywhere. My favorite, mischievous fun. So think about whatever it is you might do with your best friend and why you don't do it with casual acquaintances, and how that separates how close you feel to that person versus anybody else. So a little fun story. I was on the train from New Jersey back to DC a few weeks ago, and I sat next to this lady, and initially I had my headphones on, and I was ignoring, the world around me. I'm tired at the end of the day. But then she started to peel this orange, and it smelled just amazing. And all I could do was say, "Oh my God, that smells so good." And she looks at me and she says, "Would you like some?" And I said, "No, thank you. I just thought I'd appreciate it with you, at least the smell." And so then we started talking, of course, and she says, "Well, where are you from?" I go, "I'm from Egypt." And a couple of minutes later, she goes, "Do you believe in Jesus Christ?" And I look at her very seriously and say, "I am Jesus Christ." An hour and a half later, she says, "You made my day." But a little friendship started with a little mischievous fun. And I just say, when you have that mischievous fun, you're being real. And so with whom are you withholding that mischievous fun, that you could take one step further to get to know them a little bit better, to let them see you as who you really are? Next is vulnerability. And I'll start with a quote. David Bradford from the Graduate School of Business at Stanford. He says, "Vulnerability is the currency of relationships." My words, vulnerability is the glue. Without vulnerability, relationships remain superficial. The trick is, who goes first, me or you? There's the chicken or the egg. And I say, I don't know what you're going to do. I could only control what I could do. And if I take a little risk, perhaps it'll pay off. Perhaps we'll be closer. Perhaps our relationship will become real instead of superficial. Next one is called kind truth. And kind truth for me is the ability to say what's uncomfortable, but to say it kindly. You see, I think the world is divided into two kinds of people. Conflict avoiders. Raise your hands, please. Bulls in the china shop. Raise your hands, please. Some of us are ambidextrous. Raise your hands. So, as a conflict avoider, I would tell you that I used to think that saying nothing was better. Raise your hands if you think that's true. Just a few hands. And maybe there are some times when that's true. But if you say nothing, will it go away? Does the problem resolve? Does it maybe permeate through your skin so the other person sees it and feels the tension? Does it affect other people on the team? By contrast, if you're a bull in the china shop, your attitude might be, well, I'm going to say it. I don't care how I'm going to say it. But how does it land on the other person? Do they just shut down and stop listening? Or are they receptive to what you have to say? And so kind truth, the energy behind it is, I care about my relationship with you. I'm not here to attack you. I'm not here to hurt your feelings. I'm here to say, this relationship's important, and when this happened, it hurt my feelings. That's the simplest form of it. Sharing and generosity. I'll quote my friend Maria Sipka from Sydney. I know her better half is here. He's speaking later on, today or tomorrow. But she says people either come from Givington or from Takington. And I just want to surround myself with people that come from Givington, because I think I come from Givington. And imagine if all your friends come from Takington, but you come from Givington. it starts to become a problem. You start to wonder, are they really my friends, or do they just appreciate what I'm giving to them? So a story that I'll share with you on the giving front. A few months ago, I was asked to facilitate a retreat for an organization called Hope for Haiti for their board of directors. And as I was traveling with some of them, I was hearing all these stories about how terrible the conditions are in this poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. So I don't know what happened, but just before the board meeting started, something came upon me, and I said, I can't take your money. I'm going to donate it right back to you. I can't take it. So they were moved, and they said thank you, and that was really touching. But the next day, at the end of the meeting, they looked at me and they said, we want to thank you again. And to do that, we are going to have a mobile medical clinic in your honor in 2 weeks, and we are going to send you the video. And this time they had me in tears. So I'd like to share that video with you. Please roll the video.
Si ouvre l'écran con éléphant, mais d'habitude quand tu fourmis. Si ouvre les couverts la coussa.
Good morning. This morning we would like to take the opportunity to say thank you to Mo Fathelbab for your support in our program of mobile clinic. We are in the community of Tetleta, and we are serving that community this morning. When we arrived today, even if it is raining, there was around 25 people waiting. And the day is going on, people keep coming up. Right now, we have seen around 100 people today, and we are still keeping on seeing other ones. We would like to say thank you very much for all your support. Thank you for helping the community of Tetleta, and thank you for helping the people in Haiti.
Moi dis merci pour médicaments.
Merci pour médicaments.
Thank you. Thank you. To see those little girls still just chokes me up, and I think the reason is, before this event, I just thought I could never do enough in this world. There's so much need out there, and this one little thing has given me so much back, way more than I expected. So hopefully that inspires all of you to somehow give in places where you have not. So moving on to our challenge questions. Our challenge questions at your table. There are 3 of them, and you have 15 minutes. You can do this with a couple of people at your table. You could do it with the entire table, depending on what you're comfortable with. The first question that I'd like you to ponder is, what do you do at your place of work to spark friendships? What does your company do? What do you do to spark friendships? The second thing, to have a little fun with this, because I want you to make some friends before you leave here, share something mischievous that you've done. Just tell a story. Here's a little thing I've done that was mischievous. And then the last, and perhaps the most difficult, is to share something vulnerable. And I just want to make it a little harder for you. So this is not something you're comfortable sharing. This is something you'd rather not share. Thus the definition, vulnerable. This is taking a risk. This is sharing something that perhaps, if it leaves this room, would get you in trouble. And so before you share anything, declare confidentiality at your table, and know that it works both ways, right? So you're holding your table mate's confidence as they are holding yours. So before I say goodbye and leave those questions up for you, one last time, if you learned something today that you will apply in your life, please stand up. Thank you very much. Thank you.